Hey everybody, Nick Espinosa, your chief security fanatic here, and today, don't forget to subscribe, but we also want to talk about Google. They're a national security nightmare. Now, here's what's going on. They're allowing for the targeting of national security personnel here in the United States, not to mention other classes of people that, quite frankly, they shouldn't be able to do. And this is absolutely nuts. Now, Wired had a good write-up on this. Thank you very much to Del Cameron and Dhruv Medrotra, essentially for writing this. But their investigation into the inner workings of Google's advertising ecosystem essentially revealed an absolute ton of sensitive information on Americans, not to mention probably everybody else, is basically openly being served up to some of the world's largest brands despite Google's rules on it. And experts say when it's combined with other types of data, this information could identify and target specific individuals. So, for example, what we're talking about here is known as DV360, or Display and Video 360. This is one of the dominant marketing platforms offered by Google, and essentially it's offering companies the option of targeting devices in the United States based off of lists of internet users believed to, and here are some of the segments, suffer from things like chronic illnesses or financial distress. And there are other categories of personal data that are ostensibly banned under Google's public policies that these advertisers, these massive corporations, are getting access to. And basically, this is on you and I. But it gets worse because other lists of American users that are accessible for a price across this platform raises very serious national security concerns as they reveal basically data brokers striving to isolate millions of mobile devices carried by U.S. government workers, from judges, military service members and personnel, executive agency staff, employees on Capitol Hill, and so much more. And so by virtue of that, Wired was able to review an internal spreadsheet obtained from a U.S.-based data broker that shows the DV360 platform, again, owned by Google, currently hosting hundreds, if not thousands, of restricted or otherwise sensitive, quote-unquote, audience segments. Each one of these contains a huge amount of data that points to countless mobile devices and online profiles of people in the United States. And you might fall into one of these categories as you're sitting here listening to this or watching this. The segments are generated not by Google, but by DV360 customers who then upload them to the system, where then others can use them to target ads at specific audiences. So, for example, let's say I'm a member of DV360, and I say, show me all audience members that have XYZ. I upload that, and essentially, I'm now getting access to that. Now, this data was first obtained by the ICCL, that's the Irish Council for Civil Liberties. You might know Ireland from the data protection authorities. I mention them quite a bit as oftentimes they get reported to. And for the record, the ICCL is Ireland's oldest independent human rights body, and they revealed segments targeting hundreds of millions of device users based exclusively on health conditions, from chronic pain and menopause to, among other things, fibromyalgia, psoriasis, arthritis, high cholesterol, hypertension, and on and on and on. This is protected health information. Let's say I'm on my phone talking about the hypertension I have or fibromyalgia or whatever. Now, if Google can see that, I can get targeted for that advertisement. And Erica Walsh, who is a spokesperson for Google, had this to say about it. And I quote, "As with other demand-side platforms, advertisers are able to upload audience lists to DV360 based on their own first-party data or from segment providers. Our policies do not permit audience segments to be based on sensitive information like employment, health conditions, financial status, etc." And yeah, right. Because despite this, numerous segments contained basically in the data, and again, this is on Google's DV360 platform, are clearly targeting households and businesses based purely on data suggesting that they're experiencing things like financial hardship, and other things. And essentially, this helps advertisers to then identify people who are in the process of things like bankruptcy or burdened by long-term debt, all this kind of stuff. And Google, for the record, can't even really fully respond to this either. So Alison Bodak, another Google spokesperson talking to Wired, said that when the company detects, quote, non-compliant audience segments, we will take action. But when basically Ms. Bodak was asked to explain why Google had not detected segments with descriptions like, quote, individuals likely to have a cardiovascular condition, or, quote, parents of children likely to have a respiratory disease like asthma, Ms. Bodak did not respond. Of course. But let's get to the most concerning aspects of this, because personal health information aside, which is covered under HIPAA compliance, and this is a massive violation of that, I think, among this, the 33,000 audience segments that were obtained by the ICCL, Wired was able to sift through the data and then identify several that were aimed to identify people working in sensitive government jobs here in the United States. So, for one example, basically targets one of these lists or segments rather targets U.S. government employees who are considered quote unquote decision makers working, and I quote, specifically in the field of national security. In other words, it's identifying them by device, it's identifying them potentially by user, and here we are. So another one of these segments targets individuals who work at companies registered with the State Department to manufacture and export defense-related technologies, from missiles and space launch vehicles to cryptographic systems that house classified military and intelligence data, and sources with firsthand knowledge of Google's platform, essentially talking to Wired on the condition of anonymity because they fear retaliation, confirmed that those segments were actually accessible to Google's ad buyers. Meaning, if I'm buying ads, I can talk to, let's say, hey, show me everybody that knows how to launch a missile or whatever, and here we are. So, for the record, this is not like Google Ads. Google Ads can be free, typically used by individuals and small businesses. DV360, though, is a paid platform primarily aimed at companies that spend over $50,000 a month in ad buys, and some of the DV360 partners include Disney, NBC Universal, etc. So you know the level that we're talking about. But here's the thing. If I've got $50,000 to spend and I'm a cutout of Russian intelligence, for my company, we literally saw a podcast company being basically doing that in 2024. I literally did a segment on that. Then I can get access to this and then target advertisement. I can target phishing. I can target all of these things because I can generate whatever ad I want and then send it essentially to, these individuals. Maybe it has a link to a phishing site or an infection or something along those lines. This is a massive problem. It violates all of our privacy. Don't get me wrong. You have a Google account, odds are, right? And you probably have Google Maps on your iPhone. If you have an Android, you have a Google account, et cetera, et cetera. We use Google regardless of Android, iPhone, et cetera. They are the largest player in town and one of the largest data miners in town. But quite frankly, aside from the fact they're just violating our personal information, like, my God, if I had cancer or something like that and Google knew it and then they could target basically or have their partners target me with ads for that, I'd be pretty pissed. They don't need to know my business, but when we're talking about national security, these are the people that we can, kidnap, torture, and figure out the nuclear codes from, or how to build the bomb, or get them infected and then surveil their networks when they go into the office as they're working on sensitive stuff. This is absolutely insane. This is probably the worst data breach that I've seen coming out of Google, and I've been reporting on them for literally years now, if you're a longtime follower, that quite frankly, this is probably one of the most egregious ones I've seen in quite some time. This is a huge thing. This is why I also didn't put it in my Sunday segment of Breaches of the Week. This deserves its own. That's how important this is. So here it is. We're not going to stop using Google, right? I mean, we're going to write our members of Congress. They can't basically decide, what to vote on for lunch. This is a huge problem. And quite frankly, right now we're twisting in the wind. And if there is no actual enforcement coming from any kind of government, and I'm sorry, but the GDPR in the EU does not apply to American citizens, we got problems on our hands. And this is something that we really need to consider. So with that, Google, you're pissing me off this week. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well, a Google property. But here we are. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, please, please attempt to stay private and informed. Take care.